is a lot of times when we're asked to do something, the first step is separating the noise that accumulates in our head surrounding it and all the things we're attaching to it, like a fear of failure, like because they ask this, people are going to be mad at me, or I might not be able to deliver, or I will be participating even tacitly in people not being productive. And we're not actually hearing just the ask, because we from either history, we know that the
Hmm.
person always then expects another thing, et cetera. But like the first step is just being able to be mindful and disattach from consequence and from the past and the future, and just make sure that you're actually hearing just the ask. Because a lot of times when people go back to leadership with what they think is a problem, a lot of what they're reacting to, or a lot of things that they're posing back, is not necessarily just the ask, but what we're attaching to it, and what we know might be a fail. So so that first step is just making sure that you're being mindful and very clear about what the ask is. And a lot of times I just simply write it down so that I make sure there's nothing outside that sense, or that specific ask.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is like documentation on
Well,
the.
this is before you even get to for the company, for other people. This is for yourself, because obviously
Okay.
you're very invested in it. So you're frustrated. You're upset that this dynamic has occurred multiple times. That you feel maybe there's some tension, as Sam said, between you're trying to please two different parties and you're in the middle. That is not a comfortable place to be. So because of that, you have to make sure that you're reacting to what's real and not necessarily the additional elements of it. So not the part where you're saying they're asking for this and I know they won't be happy unless we deliver XYZ. Like you're a hop, skip, and a jump from the actual ask in terms of what's upsetting you. And that actually diminishes what we're going to say next in terms of solutions, because you're actually
Hmm.
reacting to something that doesn't exist, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, that's fair. That makes sense.
And I'll contribute something related, because what Jonathan's saying is also very close to the comments about not wanting to appear a naysayer or not wanting to compromise leadership's
Hmm.
vision. Because as Jonathan suggests, what we normally do is we hear an ask, and when you have to push back, you make a lot of assumptions about how that may impact
exactly.
what they're thinking, their trajectory, how you may be seen, how that may impact your influence on the project. And that starts to spiral into this huge universe of what ifs and possibilities. And that, as was just articulated, obscures what is actually being asked for, and just weighing that on its own merit. And then I would go even further before we go down the line of more practical, how do we manage these situations? The idea of not wanting to be seen as not a team player, and that's not coming exactly from your mouth, but this is a very common scenario where people always want to maintain a positive attitude. They're concerned about
Hmm.
pushing back or setting boundaries for themselves because they're afraid of how management will react to that, or how leadership will like,
Yep.
okay, well, this person is not going to be helping me with my objectives, so they're going to be now pushed to the corner, or they have to put their dunce hat on and we'll just put them, bench them basically. But the one thing is, it's always good to zoom out in these situations. And this is more of a principled tenet of mine that I like to reinforce in these conversations, which is you have to take a you first view in a lot of these situations, which may seem counterintuitive when you're worried about your career and there's all these things going on. But management at a company, when you have good actors and you're in a healthy, positive work environment, your management should not want you to be beyond your personal boundaries, should not want you to be doing
Hmm.
6 months of work that makes you frustrated and makes you feel unproductive and makes you feel not motivated. That's not the sustainable way to maintain your employees' morale. And it's not a sustainable way for you to work and contribute positively. And if you can't have that conversation honestly with management, then it's probably not the right place for you to be working. And not to escalate the situation. It's not like every project that comes down that you don't totally agree with. And we'll talk about how to know what the actual have honest conversations means, that you have to say, well, I'm going to have to quit my job. But we all have to, I think, keep in the relative line of sight, which is, if you're feeling like you're in a job that's constantly putting you in a position where you can't be successful, you can't speak your piece, you're worried about, your reputation
Hmm.
ruining your work life, then you've got to say that there has to be a personal boundary, which you always have to maintain first, and say that if the employer is going to constantly push you beyond that, is this the right place for you to be? So I know that conversation is kind of outsized, but I think it's important that we set the scope a little larger, because it's not just this one project. There's always a conversation about your personal boundaries and your personal productivity, and you should never feel uncomfortable using that as your first line of defense.